Hello, Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network listeners. I am Jeff Hawkins, co-host of Shake Them Ropes, with a very special announcement. If it's been a while or you've never listened to us before, the original gang is back. Myself and Rob McCarran, back talking wrestling. We have no idea where this show's going to go, where we're going to keep any of the old bits or any of the old things in there. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a journey, and we'd like for you to come along with us. Only on Shake Them Ropes on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. Fast to finger down. Stars tonight together. Here everyone is singing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for July 22nd, 2026. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network feed or on our own dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on social media at Open Voice Gate. And if you'd like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red box that says sponsor this podcast, and you set up a one-time or recurring donation. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank all of our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears, joined alongside your other host, Case Lowe. In case it is 105 degrees outside right now in Fort Worth, Texas. It is sweltering right now, but how are you doing up in a little bit more temperate Chicago?
Unseasonably cold this week, so I don't have to deal with 105 degree temperatures. That's no fun. I did have to deal with the worst air quality in the world last week and the worst air quality in the history of Chicago on record, but that is now past us. I have survived. My lungs are, of course, worse off for it. I did inhale, I'm sure, a completely unhealthy amount of Canadian wildfire smoke, but there was no other way that I would rather prepare for the Kobe World season. There was no other way that I would rather prepare for Kobe World. I have made it through alive. I am here to talk to you. I have a written review that as we speak, I'm putting the finishing touches on. I'll wrap that up after this podcast, and we'll be done with Kobe World 2026. We'll have this in the rear view, the biggest show of the Dragongate year, and one of the most, I would say, turbulent, tumultuous Dragongate years in history. We've gotten through the big one, Mike. We've gotten through the big one.
You know, with the way that the schedule works out, I mean, there's only so many other tentpole shows for the rest of the year, but we got through the 26th Kobe World Pro Wrestling Festival, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight on the program. And as we talked about last week, we kind of entered this show and our preview with some measured skepticism while recognizing that the card on paper might be more appealing to one set of less habitual Dragongate fans versus the ones that have been week to week into the promotion. And I think before we get into our overall takeaways and our thoughts, let's not kind of beat around the bush. Let's give some spoiler-free recommendations so that folks that are waiting to hear like our thoughts on what to watch before we get into the show itself. So, okay, so what would you recommend off of Kobe World 2026?
The match recommendations that I have sent to the pundits at large that are parachuting in for Kobe World 2026, I have it into two categories. I have the must-watch matches, which I would place as 3 of the 4 title matches: the Dreamgate match with KZ versus Madoka Kikuta, the Bravegate match with Homare versus Ryoya Tanaka, and the Triangle Gate match with Hyo, Jackie Kame, and Rita versus Gucci, Strong Machine J, and UT. I would also have in the recommended category the Twin Gate match of Ishin and Yoshiki Kato versus Coach Minoura and Yuki Yoshioka, in the opening match of Aki and Ryofuda versus Kazuma Kimura and Mochizuki Jr.
Yeah, I kind of have it very similar to how you would have it. We have not discussed really anything about this
I know
show
nothing about your thoughts on this show.
Yeah.
We only have talked in the last few days as to what time we were recording tonight, because I needed to be an hour later than we usually are. But I have not spoken to you about this show. I don't know your thoughts on anything. I have questions for you that I probably should have asked you ahead of time that I didn't. I.e., and I'll ask you this on the air, and then I'll let you finish your thought.
Mhm.
Have we seen an attendance number for Kobe World 2026?
Yes, and it is a number that we'll get into after I give my recommendations.
Excellent.
All
right, that's what I like to hear.
it,
All right, give your recs.
I have it pulled up. So yeah, no, I kind of intentionally, just because of away from wrestling stuff in my life, that I was not going to be able to get to Kobe World in any sort of a quick fashion. That's also one of the reasons why I was so willing to have this be a little bit of a later show this week. Just was like, it was not going to happen for me actually up until today. So I managed to stay completely unspoiled until I finished the show, which meant I basically disconnected from the internet for the last few days, which, not bad. But essentially, there are 2 piles of recommendations that you would have from the show. You would have if you have time, this is the nice thing to watch, and the 3 things that you absolutely have to go out of your way to watch. And I think that these 3 things, your opinion on the Triangle Gate, the Twin Gate, not the Twin Gate, pardon me, the Triangle Gate, the Brave Gate, and the Dream Gate. If you're someone who is coming in for this kind of show, those 3 matches, I think, would very much, like, if you're into those matches as the way that we are, you will come away from this Kobe World with a very kind of strong opinion of it. But everything else on the show, I would say, yeah, the Twin Gate is worth it if you have time. After that, I mean, I think that's kind of it for me as I'm looking through my star ratings. Like, I don't know if necessarily I would recommend the 3-way 6-man tag. The Amato match, absolutely not. But those 3 title matches, I think, really did a whole lot of kind of setting the promotion in a direction to at least finish out this 2026 in a strong fashion. In case now, those are the recommendations. And let's play a little game with the attendance, because I have it pulled up right in front of me right now. Yesterday, or last week, I don't know why I keep on saying yesterday, but last week we said 40 to 50 as the go out for one beer, go like, okay, that's fine, and move along with it. 4,000 as the that's a little tough, and then kind of going down from 250 up in all kinds of directions in our positivity about the attendance for this show. Where would you put the attendance at, just at a guess from watching it?
From watching, I go right about 4,000.
Case, the attendance was 3,980, so just at 4,000, basically.
All right, yeah, if you're in the room for that, given the quality of this show, and we'll enter, spoiler territory, so log out if you haven't seen this show and don't want to be spoiled and for some reason aren't at this point. But, you do 3,980, but you have the show you have. You leave Kobe World that night. You shake hands with the person next to you, say, job well done. Probably not a group outing at the bar, but you'll hold your head a little bit higher as you're walking into the hotel room. Maybe you do drinks at the hotel bar, but you're not going out anywhere. It's
Yeah.
not a good number. And there's no
No.
way to spin that it's not a good number. I would argue, however, not an outright disaster, and you gave yourself room to grow on this show. You should feel better about the state of your promotion leaving this show than you did coming into it, which has been a rarity this year. I would argue that it has been just a constant downhill slide where you shouldn't have gone into many of these Dragongate shows if you're in the office this year feeling very good about the product. And then you put on some shows where I would leave feeling even worse about it. This is one of those where I came into this show incredibly skeptical about not only the quality that we were going to see on this night, but just the general direction of the company. And I feel like I can breathe just a little easier. I like some of the things that I saw. I'm encouraged by the direction of certain things. That is a bad number, but it is not an outright disaster given the quality of this show and the directions that some things could be headed. Now, we could also be here a month from now going, God, remember how good we felt after Kobe World? Where did that go? And that in 2026 is a very real possibility that we do have to wrap our heads around.
Yeah, I think I would be okay with stopping by the Konbini, grabbing a beer and an ice cream treat on my way out. I think that's kind of where I would take away from this. I mean, the card on paper was not a card that, really gave any reasons to, unless that you're someone that's going to go to the tentpole show of Dragon Gate's year every year. I think we kind of figured out what that floor is at this point in time with that, but I think that the business tells the story of what the card was on paper. But I think that the question I have for you, Case, is that when we talked about the show on the preview last week, we both kind of came to a very similar 1 to 10 kind of scale of where we were at on our excitement going to the show. We both were at a 4, and we acknowledged that this is a show that we could have walked out of being at a 4, that things remained exactly the same, and it would be kind of like okay, it could have gotten a whole lot worse. There's a version of the show that could have been easily okay. DEFCON 1, what's up with this Dragon Gate? We're at a 1 right now. And there's the world that it's all systems go, and we're screaming out into the sheet saying, like, watch out for the next 4 months at Dragon Gate. We've put everything behind you. The gas leak has been fixed in the booking office. We're all engines go here. Where do you feel like you are now coming out of the show?
If I entered this show at a 4, I'm exiting this show at probably a 6.5. Maybe I could be talked into a 7. I think there's some emotional scarring with the year that they've had and just the general discomfort that this promotion has caused me, where, again, and I've talked about this on the show, where it's been tricky to analyze because some of it is, I don't know if just I am interested in the polar opposite decision than the one that they made, or if it's a poor decision, or if it's both. But there are so many things this year that have happened from a booking perspective that I have just inherently disagreed with. And it's also been a promotion that, I'll finish this year probably, unless we go on a real tear during the last 4 months, which I guess is possible, but not necessarily expected. I'll have the fewest 4-star or higher Dragon Gate matches this year than ever before. And I've been keeping track of match of the year, 4 stars and above listings since 2014. And this is going to be the weakest year Dragon Gate's ever had. That includes 2020. And that would include 2018, which is sort of the other year that I look at as the creative and in-ring low point for the promotion. So all in all, I liked Kobe World. This is a thumbs up show. I would say it's a pretty easy show to watch, all things considered. I think it had 3 legitimately great matches with 1 match of the year contender. I think it had a few matches that were good. I really liked that opener. I think people should watch that opener. There was one booking decision that bothered me quite a bit. And had they gone the other direction in the finish for that match, I think I might be a little bit higher. Had that match been better, even with the finish, I think I would be a little bit higher on this show and a little bit higher on where I'm at with Dragongate right now. But that was a reminder that we're living in a reality and that Dragongate isn't just going to be able to shake the rust off in one night with a main event that was magical and with a Dragongate match that was really special and with a really good Bravegate match. There are still flaws in this promotion. There's still long-term things that I'm super concerned about. But I would say for the first time since, I don't know, Mike, the January Cork and Hall show this year, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I kind of like the direction that things are headed right now.
Yeah, I think I might be a touch more optimistic than you. I think I would be a solid 7, just because even the stuff that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, I wouldn't call it bad. Like, you know what you're going to get with a Shun Skywalker kind of match like this, and like this 3-way 6-man, and it was exactly the kind of match that you were expecting to have. I mean, it was just a whole lot of crowd brawling, and then you know, you had a nice kind of dive train. Bane and Wolf were fun little additions there, and then Shun was going to beat Jason clean. Like, it was exactly that. It just didn't go to a level above expectation. Yamato, his 20th anniversary, the 12-man tag Paradox versus Torimon Generation, it kind of went on longer than I expected, but I wouldn't say that it was necessarily bad. And I would say listening to English commentary and having Jay kind of go in and talk about Yamato's relationships with people in the match was kind of a nice touch there. And I liked the opener. I mean, it did not get a whole lot of time, but it was not to be expected to get a whole lot of time. But it was just a real fun matchup with like the 4 young guys in the roster. But I mean, like, coming out of this case, I'll say this. I have the Triangle Gate, Brave Gate, which I think I might be a little higher on than you just from the way it sounds, and the Dream Gate all at 4.5 stars. And for me, if this is a show that, I mean, going out of the Yamato match, I was like, okay, we kind of need this business end to pick up in the way that we need it to pick up. And the Twin Gate, I think there's a lot to kind of unpack with that. But the 3 matches that were kind of counted on to carry out like the bulk of the work output, I feel like hit exactly what you expected. And at the very least, with things are going into August and in the eventual lead up to the show at Oda Ward in about 6 weeks, I think that they have a pretty strong kind of footing, and it will be interesting to kind of see how the Dreamgate run now goes for KZ. And I think that, you know, we spent a lot of time last week trying to unpack like what it meant if KZ was to become Dreamgate champion. And, you know, we said all of that, but like, lo and behold, watching the match, the 25-minute kind of war there that in a lot of ways was a tribute to all the other kind of KZ title matches to get to this place. By the time that he did the 5 elbow smashes to win, I was there for it. I was ready, and I was dying waiting to see if KZ won. And then everything after that match, I was like, oh, all right, we're with KZ here. And it might not be a long time. It might not be necessarily a run that in 2031 we look at as really formulating kind of the future here, but have to look at it as a move in the positive direction after the absolute disappointment of Madoka Kikuta's second Dreamgate run. And if you have that happen on top, it's going to have me be at a level of positiveness. And yeah, I find myself a lot more excited going into August, and especially going into Rey de Parejas than I thought I would be in this seat last week.
Well, let's start there. Let's start with the Dreamgate match. Let's start with Kikuta. We obviously both have a lot to say on KZ in just a second, but this Kikuta reign is very funny. I was taking a walk last night, and I was thinking about how I wanted to tackle it on this show, and I kept on going back to an analogy that Bill Simmons uses all the time when he talks about basketball and his thoughts on Karl Malone. And he's said time after time, one of the reasons that he wrote the book of basketball was that, you know, at the time Malone was the second highest scorer in NBA history. Now he's the third behind LeBron and Kareem. And, he has this horrible fear that 30 or 40 years from now, we're going to look at Basketball Reference, and for the people that weren't there in real time, they're going to see Karl Malone's stats and the impact that he had on an individual level, and they're going to go, oh, okay, Karl Malone was one of the greatest players of all time. It was Shaq and Kobe and Jordan and Pippen and Malone as these all-time guys that had the peak of their career in the 90s or whatever. And Simmons has pushed back against that time after time, and that if you were watching in real time, it's just ridiculous to think of Malone as one of the truly greatest NBA players of all time. When you look at this Madoka Kikuta Dreamgate run, and we've talked about the complexities of this as it's gone along, a really good Benkei match, a really good Susumu Yokosuka match, a really good Gianni Valletta match. Is there one more? There was
Kai.
one more in there. Yeah, the Kai match was not good. The Yoshioka match was not good. But on paper, when you factor in Ben and Susumu and Valletta and now KZ, you're looking at a pretty solid Dreamgate run on paper. I mean, there's 4 legitimately great matches in that run, with the KZ match being the best performance of Kikuta's career. The problem is that we lived through it. And the problem is that we've existed in 2026, and we saw in the interim how poor the builds were and how not engaging Kikuta was as champion. And we saw a 3-month gap between the Kai match and the KZ match, and just how this promotion was rudderless. And it wasn't going to be Kikuta that was going to save them with anything that he could do as the top of the pack, as the top champion of this promotion. It was just bad top down, and it was bad because of Kikuta. And he just happened to get bailed out by a big match Benkei performance, and he got bailed out by a big match Susumu Yokosuka performance. He got bailed out by a great build to a Gianni Valletta match. And here was the time where, yes, look, everybody, rightfully so, is talking about KZ, about what's to come with KZ, about KZ's career, where he stands as an all-timer. Trust me, Kento Miyahara fans are not going to want to hear what I have to say about KZ here in just a minute, and the comparison I always make between those two. But Kikuta had the best match of his life here. And this match would not be as good if Kikuta wasn't doing the things that Kikuta did in this match. And I thought he was absolutely marvelous. I had his high mark previously as the Dead or Alive 2023 match against Shun Skywalker, where he first won the Dreamgate belt. That match, up to this point, was the best thing Kikuta had ever done. This clears that. This is the new high mark for Madoka Kikuta's career.
Yeah, I feel like that the Malone comparison is so apt, just because you look at like the results and you go like, okay, 4-star, 4.5-star, 4.5-star, and you go like, oh geez, this guy really put in a big shift as champion, and it's just impossible to, in context, disentangle him from a lot of the negativity that just dripped throughout the promotion while he was champion. And frankly, I mean, the fact that as the title run went along, it got more and more kind of stale, to be honest. I mean, I would argue that the Kai match maybe was not as boring necessarily as the Yoshioka match, but after he got through Susumu, the title matches changed, and they've got a lot worse when he started adding interference to it with it. But yeah, it's such an interesting thing to kind of look at Kikuta in this, guys, because now he's only 24. He has had 2 sizable Dreamgate runs at this point, and it's kind of hard to put him in like this absolute context. I mean, I apologize. He's 26 now. He's 26. But he's someone that I feel like you really start boiling down, and it's hard to like take a lot of stuff away from him when you have a match like he did headlining Kobe World, which I think we can say objectively, looking at him as progression as a champion, he had the match of his career at a place where 3 years ago it was a very underwhelming Dreamgate match that he was champion in.
And so he was responsible for that performance. That's the tough thing with Kikuta. It's like, I don't know what to do with him now. And I was talking
He's
to somebody.
comfortably like the best booked person in the roster. Like as a champion, if you want to like look at it just like what you want for a champion, he's been booked as well as anyone else in the company over the last year. Is just toxic the way that the reign came off as.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the tricky thing. I was talking to somebody about this earlier this week that is going to watch this show, but it's certainly not a show-to-show Dragongate viewer. And I was talking to them, and I was like, the thing with Kikuta is like, last year I thought he was a top 15 1-5 wrestler in the world. This year he's probably not going to be in my top 50. And we've seen these wide swaths throughout his career, and he's only been active for 6 years, and he missed an entire year due to injury. But it's just this vicious up and down with him. I mean, Mike, you remember when he came back from injury in 2022, he looked dead on arrival. I mean, he showed no fire. He looked lost on this roster.
It took Shingo Takagi beating the crap out of him to get his head on straight.
We talked at length about how, his contemporaries were SB Kento and Jackie Kame, and Kento by that point had already, I mean, God, he was on his way out of the company when Kikuta came back, which is so crazy to think about. But Kento had that established career, that arc with the Bravegate belt, and we were just starting to really see how special Kame was as a wrestler. And Kikuta just, I mean, he wasn't there when he came back. He wasn't there between the bells, and he was wrestling really tepidly, and he showed no fire, and he had no heart, and he had no charisma. And then they sort of stumbled into something with him as first the D-Courage assistant, not even a full-blown member of that unit. And then he started to find his footing in D-Courage, and he had that brief Twin Gate run with Yoshioka in 2022. I think that was Daya in 2022, because Yoshioka was Dreamgate champion. And by the end of the year, it was like, all right, I think we're okay with this guy. And then you're right, that there's that Shingo match at Final Gate 2023 that was really, or I guess that was Final Gate 2022, because 2023 was that awful three-way match.
Right.
Final Gate 2022, Shingo comes aboard. He has that great tag match with Kikuta, and we're sort of off to the races. And, Dead or Alive 2023, it's the crowning of a new champion. He cuts the Reiwa 6 promo, and then he starts to lay some eggs after that. And so he has this great run to end 2022. He comes into 2023 with a ton of momentum. And then by the end of the year, we're back to dead on arrival Kikuta. And he's a failing champion. He loses the belt in a really weak match. And they're like, oh my God, we got to start over with this guy. But now he finds himself in a D-Courage without Yoshioka because he's injured, but with Daya and Tanaka. And suddenly, when they're used, because there wasn't a ton of focus given to them throughout points in time in 2024, but when they're used, it's a super fun trio, and Kikuta's doing great work again. And I'm kind of getting sucked back into the idea of Madoka Kikuta. When he turned heel last year, I thought the heel turn angle in the cage at the last Dead or Alive show, I thought that was a bit of a mess, and I don't think it got over in the way that they were hoping for it to. But Mike, do you remember last year, May, June, July, August, all the core kids in the build of that Dangerous Gate match, you and I would come on the show and we would go,
ruled.
We would go, Kikuta rules. This heel turn was a stroke of genius. We didn't think he had this in him, but my God, is this guy special. He's nailed this heel character. He had that no DQ match with Strong Machine J at Kobe World last year. I was reading my World review. I wrote almost as much about that match as anything else during World last year, because I had so many thoughts coming away from it about the trajectory of Strong Machine J and the trajectory of Kikuta, and just what a home run this heel turn has been, and the future is bright for Madoka Kikuta. And then he wins the Dreamgate belt in August last year in that weird match with Skywalker where, unfortunately, my antenna was raised and my antenna was correct that maybe something was a little off with Shun at that point. But he won the belt, and it didn't feel super satisfying. Felt like the win had gotten taken out of the sails of Skywalker a little bit. Felt like it wasn't the match to really kick the Kikuta reign off in the best way possible. And for the last 11 months, we've just had this sort of love-hate relationship with this guy where it was a weak build to the Ben match. It was a weak build to the Susumu match, but those matches were great. And then he had the Valletta match, and then we thought he was going to lose the title in February to Yoshioka. He didn't. That was a match that in so many ways was great, and yet they did everything in their power to ruin it. And by the end of the match, that match was indeed ruined. And from February to now, it wasn't that I hated him as champion as much as I was just purely apathetic. I didn't care about what he was doing. I didn't like him as champion, but I didn't pay any mind to it because he was a complete abject failure as Dreamgate champion in my mind. But now he ends his reign with this, and assuming we get him, maybe it's he and Jason Lee and Kai in some trios matches because it seems like the focus for that unit going forward, the tag is still going to be Ishin and Kato. Who knows what he does? But Mike, I'm kind of back in on Madoka Kikuta.
Yeah, I think just getting out of the scenario, and I mean, it clearly, given the shape of the other guy, the exit ramp of Yuki Yoshioka made a lot of sense at the time, and maybe we'd be back kind of to more of a warm feeling with it. And I just he is such a hard guy to really parse. And the more I think about it, yeah, like him going into Tag League is now a lot more kind of interesting. I mean, he's someone that, I mean, this was a sort of loss to KZ that, I mean, you can imagine him just going on a complete war path with Jason or Kai throughout Rey de Parejas, and that is instantly him kind of just murdering people very easily. And then he feels like he would be at a level of enthusiasm or a level of interest that he just lost throughout the title match, the title run. I mean, it also is worth stating that this was only his third title match in 2026. And that, I feel like, colors it a lot too. He only has had title matches at the big shows and the one match against Kai. And I think that I think that if we had more title defenses, maybe one or two more at this point, things, well, maybe the apathy wouldn't be so entrenched at that point with him. Because, I mean, we saw enough from him in 2025 to know that he was capable of being a great heel champion at points. And we saw against KZ that if he had the right opponent and doing the right style of match, it didn't necessarily mean who the challenger necessarily needed to be in that scenario. It just never kind of lined up right.
Yeah, there's a larger issue with the way that Dragongate has handled their titles in 2026 that we'll talk about when we get to the Dragongate stuff. As I was writing my written review, I put together a stat that was so unbelievably alarming when I came across it, and the Dreamgate belt certainly figures into that a little bit, and just the lack of activity, the lack of focus, especially from Golden Coliseum to now. It's just been a complete afterthought, which has been so odd because it's not like we left Golden Coliseum going, oh, this is the obvious main event for Kobe World. We can just wait until they get to this point. It was the opposite. We were like, how did they go through a triple shot in Hokkaido at the end of May and not do anything to build up a possible Dreamgate match at World? It wasn't until the haphazardly put together KZ versus Cielo stuff for the 2nd June Cork and that we had any sort of direction. So to go that long without a Dreamgate match when there wasn't an obvious direction is a really, really, really strange thing. But I think Kikuta falls into maybe a little bit of the same trap that a post-eye injury Yoshioka does, and certainly Coach Minoura does, which is where these are guys that are 1B guys. I think Kikuta is a phenomenal tag team wrestler, and if they had gone a different direction with the Twin Gate match, I think Kikuta and X, whether that be Jason Lee or whether that be Kai or whether that be Ishin or Kato, whatever Gaja Dokuro duo they'd want to put together with Kikuta, I think those guys could have a stellar match against Yoshioka and Minoura, because spiritually, I think, and again, this is specifically post-eye injury Yoshioka, I think they're all kind of the same wrestler, and I think they all have the same struggles, and I think they all do the same things incredibly well that they do well. That's worked out for Yoshioka and Minoura. I'm incredibly bullish on that tag team. For Kikuta, I don't need to see him in a serious singles push for quite some time. Get him in a tag team, get him racking up wins that way, but I think that he is ultimately going to suffer the same fate of Yoshioka and Minoura, where he could be in an awesome all-star tag team where you've got two really popular wrestlers in that group, and he comes across like an even bigger star as a result. But I'm just mentally, it's going to take a lot for me to invest in another big Madoka Kikuta singles push, whether that be as a babyface or as a heel.
Yeah, and I mean, I go back to the fact that he's 26.
He's 26, and that's the just to cut you off just real quick. I apologize, but that's the strange thing with this roster, because when we talk about the Bravegate match in a little bit, like, I loved that match. I thought that match was legitimately great. I didn't like it as much as you did, but I thought that match was a 4-star great match. But I thought it was a 4-star match because of the work that Tanaka did. And I'm not sure that Homare brought a ton to the table in that match. Homare is also 21. It's like, okay, I'm not going to write this guy off as a big match wrestler. The guy's 21. He's going to figure it out. I'm so surprised. Like, and this is, from multiple people I've heard this from, where they're treating this G1 with Aaron Wolf as like, well, we're going to figure out whether he's a star out of this G1. I'm like, look, New Japan has a ton of issues. Dragongate has a ton of issues. I understand the urgency to create a star right now. Do we have to write this guy off right now if he doesn't totally figure it out? And the Kikuta thing, it's just strange that you're right. It's like, okay, he's 26, but he also is a 2-time Dreamgate champion. He's also defended the Dreamgate belt twice at Kobe World now. So he's 26, and you want to give him time to grow, but he's also been in positions where he's really needed to succeed, and he's finished with mixed results at best.
Yeah, I guess I'm of two minds of, yes, absolutely, Kikuta is getting downcycled, staying away really from being an on-top figure. I mean, he really shouldn't challenge for the belt until he ends up being a babyface again. Like, just keep him away from that.
He should be wrestling Kazuma Komura as often as humanly possible for the rest of this year.
Yeah, I mean, like, he should be just not necessarily doing much. I mean, like, essentially what Yamato has been doing for the last 14 months up until 2 days ago.
And maybe we do stuff with Yamato now. Maybe we recognize that Yamato is an active wrestler on this roster, and that we can use him and push him and put him in angles.
Right, yeah, but I also look at it as what all he's accomplished at 26, and now that we're seeing someone at age 30 leave the company, and it's not solely because of, oh, what else is there to do with him? It's time for him to kind of move on here. But you look at his checklist and you look at Kikuta's checklist, and they're both looking pretty full at a certain kind of point that, the waiting around for him might not happen, because, at a certain point, this might be a guy that moves on. And that's not me saying anything or knowing anything. It's just, I mean, he's accomplished so much. I mean, at 26, and you contrast that even to Yamato at this point of his career. Yamato, yeah, he won at that point was the fastest to the Dreamgate champion, but then he was cycled down for a couple of years until post Blood Warriors Injunction 3, right? So it's an interesting situation. I can kind of go in a lot of ways about what is best for Madoka Kikuta for the remainder of 2026 and into 2027.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very passionately. The only person on this roster that is creatively spent that I don't think has a place in Dragongate anymore is Gianni Valletta. And that is not due to the work that Valletta's done. It's that I thought they told the perfect story with him when he lost the Dreamgate belt in December. And I'm really uninterested in anything else that they do with Valletta, just because I thought it was the perfect write-off. I could have given you 5 years of Shun Skywalker programming that I wanted to see that we'll never get, unfortunately. And Kikuta, even at 26 with 2 Dreamgate reigns under his belt, there's still plenty to do with him. Let's downcycle him for a little bit. Let's get some of this stink off of him. Maybe there's a new heel unit that he's involved with but doesn't necessarily lead. I think that would do him some good. And we'll go from there. But on the whole, a complicated and heavily flawed Dreamgate reign. But it ends with the match of his life. It ends with the best Dragongate match I've seen this year. One of the best matches in wrestling, period, this year. And after 6 failed Dreamgate challenges, Masaki Mochizuki 2018, Pac 2019, Naruki Doi 2020, Shun Skywalker 2021, Eita 2020. So I forgot Eita in there. Doi and Eita 2020, Skywalker 2021, and Yamato 2025. Mike, for the first time ever, KZ is the Open the Dreamgate champion.
And why not at this point? Why not? And why not do it in the way that they exactly did in Kobe 2 nights ago? It is a situation where, like, I don't have huge expectations for him trying to be a key collector or anything. And with the way that this schedule kind of lends itself, I mean, he's not defending until Oda, it seems like. But yeah, I mean, this match really felt like a testament to those other 6 matches, and especially KZ finally reaching like the point of where he always had the perseverance and the gumption, but this time he was able to kind of both his body held up through a hellacious beating. I mean, he is one of the most ridiculous bumpers in Dreamgate history, and there were at least 3 different ones that I went like, Jesus Christ, KZ, that looked pretty bad. But this time it all came together for him, and it felt like that, in a way, the spider twist strategy that was developing in the lead up was the key to kind of tire KZ down, or Kikuta down, to a point that we got to see that the like at like the 20-minute mark, the battle of elbow versus lariat. And give credit to Kikuta, the way that he sold that last 5 minutes, and especially into the closing stretch where KZ wins after what I counted as 5 elbow smashes with a pinfall between the two of them, but ending with probably some of the more devastating ones after unleashing the full clip. 20 years into his career, KZ is finally Dreamgate champion.
One of the most physical matches in Dragon Gate history. I can't believe for a 27-minute match, I can't believe the pace that they worked at, where
there was no stalling.
There was no stalling. That's the thing, is that
and there was no Shima-esque Dreamgate opening with this. It was bombs from the start for 27 minutes. The only break case, and sorry for interrupting you,
no, go ahead,
was what was the 20 count for the pile driver on the stage. That was like the only real breather portion of this entire match.
And I really like KZ throwing himself down the ramp to get closer to the ring. It's just the whole thing was great, but you know, I mean, there's a few minutes at the beginning where they're feeling each other out, but from the moment that Kikuta hits the backdrop driver that sends KZ onto the apron, it's on, and it never slows down. And I still, like, I can't stop thinking about the physicality of this match. And I really, really, really hope that the people that will check in for this show that don't typically watch Dragon Gate, maybe that don't typically enjoy Dragon Gate at this point, I hope they are as moved by that as I was, to a point that towards the finishing stretch, Kikuta hit 2 different hip attacks that got a very loud, very audible reaction out of me. And KZ down the stretch, the forearms that he was hitting, I mean, this had all of the physicality of like a prime Sekimoto Okabayashi match, but packaged in a Japanese heavyweight epic main event style match that went 27 minutes. This was an absolute masterclass of pro wrestling. And when you think about the history of KZ and the Dreamgate belt now, 4 3/4 stars versus Mochizuki, 4 3/4 stars versus Pac, 4 3/4 stars versus Doi. I think I had that 8 to match at 3 3/4, and then 4 3/4 star versus Skywalker, 4 3/4 stars versus Yamato, and now I have this at 4 3/4 stars versus Kikuta. Mike, this is one of the 100 greatest wrestlers to ever live. It's just the volume in which this guy operates is at an absurd level. I've got to look now. I'm going to throw it to you because I got to look this up. I might have a KZ match in my match of the year top 10 for every year for like the last 9 years. But your thoughts on, we can talk about KZ's legacy in a second, but just the impact and the violence that KZ suffered in this match, did it register with you as much as it did me?
Oh my God, you have it starts with one of the ugliest looking back body drops to the edge of the apron. and then a big boot on the apron that he takes immediately to the floor. That pile driver on the stage, a sleeper swing, a just one of like the cooler delayed elbow cell attacks that he did after a snap pile driver. And really, that was all the stuff that he took before he ate 3 rolling lariats and kicks outs. So this is on top of a legacy of the tombstone from the second rope against Pac, Mochizuki punching him in the gut a whole lot and how much that ruled, the monkey flip from Skywalker. This is someone that whenever he's kind of been put into others' Dreamgate matches, and I think it's fair to say that the Mochizuki match was a Masaki Mochizuki match. At its heart, that was Masaki Mochizuki having his style of a Dreamgate match with the right person, and KZ proving that he was that right person. The Pac match was, especially like nowadays, I think that that's like Pac's like big singles match style, as we've seen in the 7 years since then. And you kind of go down the list, and he does everyone's match side. The match versus Yamato is very much a Yamato style Dreamgate match. You go down that list and you go to this match, and it doesn't feel like a Kikuta match, even though, I mean, Kikuta had his big bombs and had some of the more gnarly looking rolling hip attacks and all of that stuff. It's a KZ match at its heart, and it felt very much like his thesis on like, this is what I believe a Dreamgate match should be, just in the same way that the Pac match and the Mochizuki matches were those champions' minds for those matches. This match felt not a Kikuta match whatsoever. It was a KZ match.
No, it was one of those where, again, as soon as I saw that backdrop driver where Kikuta just throws him against the apron, I was like, oh, of course this is the match. And it's good that KZ won the Dreamgate belt, not in the Mochi match, not in the swanky Naruki Doi match, not in the swanky Eita match. KZ almost had to die to get this title. And it makes sense, and it feels right. And this was a KZ match because KZ was mauled to death, and he came back and kept fighting, and he was mauled again, and then he came back and kept fighting some more, and then he got that win. I was reading my 2021 Kobe World Review where you reviewed the second show with Skywalker versus Yamato. I reviewed the first show with Skywalker versus KZ, and I didn't remember this being my angle at the time, but I was reading it back today, and I was talking about how in that match, like, had KZ not come to the brink of death, essentially, then it would have been a bad look for him. It would have been another Dreamgate loss. Skywalker was going to have to put him in the ground, and anything less than an extraordinary match that nearly led to the death of KZ would ultimately be a fault against KZ. And then they went out and had the perfect kind of match that they needed to have. And they had that same style of match here, but with KZ coming out on top. A masterful job. It was a KZ match because KZ was nearly killed. And that was an incredible thing to say.
Yeah. And then in the post-match, KZ collects the belt he's been fighting for. I mean, at the point that he surpassed Takashi as the most Dream Keys throughout this, I think. I didn't go back and count them exactly, but I think the 7th defense, if he would have lost, he would have passed Takashi here. But now he is Dreamgate champion. It is his 20th anniversary year, as well as it is Yamato. So he remembers the last time that him and Yamato fought. Yamato said, hey, we'll do this again, but next time it better be as you as champion. And Yamato took him up on it and has decided to, in the lead up to this match, every day on Twitter say one very, very cutting thing about KZ. And he has already commented on the fact that it took KZ 20 years for something that took him 3 years and 8 months. And maybe the Brave Gate is the most important title in this company right now. So we're off to the races with Sassy Yamato.
In terms of KZ's legacy, I just want to go back to the match of the year point that I made previously. So I have KZ matches in my top 10. The first time he appears there is 2016 in the match that would lead to the disbandment of Diehards, that three-way tag with Monster Express for Zerk and Dia Hearts. This was 2-4-16 in Cork and Hall. A match that was largely built around KZ. This is sort of his match. It comes down to him and Yamadoi at the end, and it's just spectacular to see KZ involved in that sort of environment because he really turns the corner in 2015, and I know a lot of people that have that. Was it KZ Tozawa in February of 2015? Because that's when Tozawa wins the Brave Gate belt. And a lot of people that finished very well in Voices of Wrestling match of the year that year. I did not have that in my top 10 though. So I have a KZ match in my top 10 in 2016. I do not in 2017, but I'll circle back to that. 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. I have KZ matches, at least one in my top 10. 2021, I have two because I not only have KZ versus Skywalker, but I have KZ versus Minoura from the King of Gate finals that year. 2022, I do not. 2023, I do not. 2024, he's back in there. 2025, he's got two matches in my top 10. When I go back and look at 2017, I was looking now, okay, what's the best KZ match that year? And it is a 4 3/4 star match. KZ, Hulk, and Yamato versus Yoshino Doi and Jason Lee from Final Gate that year. That's one of the best Triangle Gate matches in history. If I had to do this over again, Mike, my number 10 match that year, and I remember this match well, I stand by loving it, but I would imagine in 2026 eyes, having somewhat recently watched that Triangle Gate match and having not watched this match since it occurred, Mike, my number 10 match in 2017 was from AAW in Chicago, and it was Low Key versus Sami Callihan.
I was going to guess as soon as you said AAW, I was going to say, wait, you had the draw on your list?
I unfortunately did have the draw on my list. I adore that match. It finished 93rd that year, so it got other votes, but I was in love with that match. I thought it was one of the greatest things. But with 2026 eyes, my guess is that I would side with the Triangle Gate match that I had at 4 3/4 stars. When I go to 2022, I look at my match of the year that year, my match of the year voting that year, and I have 3 Dragongate matches in it. I have the Jason and Jackie versus Diamante Shun matches, my match of the year. Kai versus Yokosuka did very well. Mochizuki versus Yoshioka at the end of the year did very well. I do not have either of the KZ matches that I had at 4 3/4 stars in my top 10. The Ishida, Minoura, and Doi versus Kame, KZ, and UT match from March of that year, the original Gold Class versus that era of Vibes, or the KZ versus Skywalker rematch from King of Gate that year. So in 2022, he doesn't have a top 10 finish, but he does have 2 matches at 4 3/4 stars. And then when I look to 2023, I ended up, I think, bumping him out. This is probably his weakest in-ring year because I only have a pair of 4.5 star matches there. I have that super underrated Shimizu and KZ versus Mochizuki and Mochizuki Jr. Twin Gate match, and then that Ryoya Tanaka D-Courage 8-man debut. I have those as his best matches that year. So realistically, my point here is that since 2016, the only year that KZ really feels out of place in any sort of match of the year voting is 2023. But that's now a 9-year run where this match I expect to do very well. I know it'll be in my top 10, probably in my top 5, maybe in my top 3. This is now a decade-long run where KZ is consistently in the mix for some of the best matches in the entire year. And we talked about this when we did Greatest Wrestler Ever. I understand that it's hard to compare a guy like Kento Miyahara, who has been the face of this era of All Japan Pro Wrestling, with KZ, who is a perennial underdog, a lovable loser, somebody who is just now getting his first Dreamgate run. But when you stack up the amount of great matches those two have had, I kind of think KZ is... I think he has a sizable lead over Miyahara. And that's not to say that maybe on his best day, Miyahara doesn't peak higher than KZ, but I would push back greatly and I would push back swiftly if somebody is scoffing at that comparison. I think KZ has had a better in-ring career than Kento Miyahara, and I think we have a chance with this Dreamgate reign for KZ to only widen that gap a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like with Miyahara, it's he's kind of hurt because he is the person that you point to as like the star in that era, and it's not necessarily the most fair kind of thing for someone trying to develop a full catalog to a level that you would get if you get to be in the Dragon system. You know, like I can't think of who would you say Miyohara's great tag runs are. Like he just
That's
doesn't.
the thing is that so
Yeah.
KZ not only has the singles resume, which hey, just if you
Mhm.
want to just throw the Dreamgate matches in there. Forget anything else that he's done, and then give you the laundry list of the non-title brilliant KZ singles matches. But
Right.
he's got great tag runs. I mean, I'm trying to think now because I'm going to draw a blank on, of course, anything that he's done, you know, as a tag team wrestler. But he's got the Flamita Twingate reign, which I really liked. He's got that UT Ryukyu Dragon tag team run that I really like. He had the Shimizu stuff that I really enjoyed. And on the whole, like this is just a really strong tag wrestler. He's got the it's BB Hulk and KZ against Shima and Dragon Kid, that Twingate challenge from 2017. That's excellent. And then we're at a point where KZ, I think, has become, you know, we'll see what happens with Kame and Rita. Maybe they surpass him here, but I think KZ has become maybe the most accomplished in-ring Triangle Gate wrestler there is. I mean, there's just a number of absolutely phenomenal high-end match of the year level Triangle Gate matches that have been rallied around KZ.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. And it's going to be fascinating to see where this title run exactly goes. Like Yamato is the first stop. It's Yamato, so very easily could be the last stop, zero key for him. But you also like look at the end of the year and everything, and boy, don't I think that they would like to be able to do like a KZ, not a Dreamgate match in Hokkaido at the end of the year, but boy, would it make a lot of sense that they would like to have KZ being champion at that point. And if that happens, I mean, you have like a completely open dance card. And, you know, I think that one of the reasons why we're so positive coming out of this, especially like as KZ is champion, the one thing we feared did not happen. Strong Machine J did not immediately turn on him, even though he suffered a loss earlier that night. And with that, we know that he's not going to be tied up in kind of Gaja Dokuro stuff, if that was the route that we were speculating.
Yeah, that's the thing with KZ is, you know, let's get this Yamato match out of the way, which I guess I understand. I think I wish it was coming a little bit later in the run, but all right, you want to do the Yamato match now. Let's get him a Love and Peace challenger. Let's get him a Coach Minoura stopgap defense if we have to. Let's get him, you know, whether it's Monte or whether it's Cielo, let's get him one of those unaffiliated defenses, and then we can start to circle back around to Gaja Dokuro. And ideally, I think it'll be Ishin or Kato getting that first challenge if they go with the heels there. But there's a lot of untapped potential here. There's a lot of fresh matches with KZ, and I think they've stumbled into something, whether it's a long-term reign or whether it's a short-term reign. I do think he should beat Yamato, and then from there, it's anybody's ballgame. And you're exactly right. It would not shock me if he's holding the title through December just to get to that Hokkaido triple shot. And it wouldn't shock me if they do KZ versus Hulk for the Dreamgate in Hokkaido on that third night. That feels like that's in play.
I mean, that's the only way I feel like you could have a Hulk title match.
Oh God, yeah. No, I wouldn't accept anything else. But if as down as I am on Hulk in 2026, if they did KZ versus Hulk in Hokkaido for the Dreamgate belt, I'd throw my hands up and go, all right, I get it. That's fine. I'm not going to complain too much about that.
Right. Yeah, but it's interesting in it, and I think that in a promotion where the Dreamgate kind of has dictated a lot of momentum amongst the promotion, it's kind of a clean slate with KZ. I mean, we know where he's going to next. We don't know when it is exactly. I mean, Oda Award's on the 12th of September, so that's some time, but we have a tag lead to get through. So
that's the thing. You got a tag league here, and that was the argument that I made to you a few weeks ago, was normally the tag league can sort of screw up a new Dreamgate champion.
KZ's not that risk.
No, yeah. KZ's not at risk for that. It gives everybody some breathing room. You can set up future challengers that way. It's just the timing of this works out nice. This is the first time since Kikuta won the title 11 months ago that I like what's going on with the Dreamgate belt. I'm very into this.
The semi-main event of Kobe World was the Open the Brave Gate title match where Ryoya Tanaka was going for his 12th record-breaking defense of the Open the Brave Gate title against Homare. And lo and behold, this was something that we all thought that this was kind of the 95%, 5% match of the show, that it felt, at least to me, that Tanaka was destined to break the record here, and he was able to do so. And maybe not the top match of his reign, but I think I'm higher on it than you. I thoroughly love this match. Tanaka gets V12 with his Avalanche Crimson Smash into the Stardust Press, and afterwards does the deal. He invites Homare into Tanaka Gun. We get a thumbs down, but then a handshake and hug, and Tanaka's unit exits Kobe World with their third member, and Tanaka as the all-time, at least in a single run, greatest Brave Gate champion.
They've nailed it, I continue to say this, and I said this a bunch of different people this week, for all of the faults of Dragongate over the last 12 months, and especially all the faults of Dragongate over the last 6 months, the handling of Ryoya Tanaka and the handling of the Brave Gate belt is just absolutely fantastic. And I felt like this match was hot. This is the third year in a row now that I feel like the Brave Gate title has been really, really hot heading into World, which is great. 2 years ago, it was Hyo versus Dragon Dia in the match that we all sort of recognize as a little bit of a Brave Gate rebirth and a little bit of a like, hey, this feels right. We sort of got out of the muck with whatever was happening with the Brave Gate belt. This is one of the bigger matches on the show. And then last year, Tanaka versus UT, which took place on the undercard. But I really love that match. And I think we would all really love that match if the finish wasn't screwed up with that poor Stardust Press. But that match felt really big because we knew it was the birth of something with Tanaka. And I don't think any of us imagined that a year from that match, that Tanaka would be semi-main eventing Kobe World in one of the hotter, more anticipated matches on the show. But Mike, by the time we got there, it just felt right. And I continue to maintain that I don't think Tanaka should lose this Brave Gate belt. I'll throw a potential snag on that plan at you in just a minute, but I think he should keep winning until he wins the Dream Gate belt, and then I think he should vacate the Brave Gate belt from there. But I'm at a point where I'm not sure that Tanaka needs to lose this title ever.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Yeah, it just seems like that the belt was made to be around his waist. The one thing they need to do is they need to fix the title belts a little bit. I noticed the side plates go down on both the Twin Gate and the Brave Gate, and at least it would have bugged me. It'll be interesting to see what the photos kind of come out and like the souvenir ones, because one of the side plates on the Brave Gate was broken during like all the posing afterwards. But he's the perfect Dragon Gate wrestler. He was made in a lab, and in the 3 years since he debuted, he has very rarely that one Stardust Press might be the only time that Ryoya Tanaka took a step in the wrong direction as a wrestler. And I just the thing that got me in this match was that you really had Tanaka basically pull Homare through this, because I felt like that there were moments, and especially in the middle portions, that things got a little bit sloppy with it. And I was surprised at the level of command from Tanaka to get them kind of back on course. Nothing got too far off track, but you could tell that things were just going a little fast and not necessarily at the Christmas that you would expect. And then you just really had him, you had Homare just keep on trying to find ways to prevent the Stardust Press, trying to go up top for moves that ended up biting him in the rear, doing a Spanish fly into the cross saber near fall, and then a avalanche cross saber into that Stardust Press. And it's not the best match of his run. The Doi match still might be my Dragongate match of the year, to be quite honest. But I came away with this with a new level of respect for Tanaka as this Brave Gate captain. And yeah, it looks like next up for him is going to be Dragon Kid for V13. And although it's Dragon Kid, there's not really a risk there for him to have to drop the belt there. And as we keep on kind of talking about with him, I'm completely on board with you. He should hold the belt until he wins the Dreamgate at this point, because I don't know that you've booked him so well that he's in such a strong position that it would have to take someone being in the exact right scenario to take the belt from him anytime soon. And it just feels like that there is now like this such a clear distance in the Brave Gate that, as much as I enjoyed the Ishida and Kikuta stuff, where that felt like that where the promotion was hot in 2020 and 2021, this is the hottest that the Brave Gate has really ever been. And I mean, you contrast that with the Pac run, which there was so many great defenses in the 11 that he had in the feud with Ricochet throughout it, but at no point I feel like that the Brave Gate has been at the height that it was. I mean,
no, Mike, this is a historically significant Brave Gate run. I mean, this has restored the title to, I think, look, let me put it this way. Flamita was never going to go second from the top at Kobe World in a Brave Gate match. Pac, while Brave Gate champion, went second from the top in 2011, and that felt right. And it feels like Tanaka is about at that point on the roster where Pac was, is that firmly cemented, not a main eventer, but an upper mid-carder, if we were going to break it down from that perspective. I mean, he has the level of cachet and the level of pull that Pac had in 2011, but that's the last time. I mean, this is a much bigger deal, and Tanaka's a much bigger star than Kaito Ishida was during that reign. And we loved the Kaito Ishida stuff. That's not a knock on him, but this laps it. I mean, this is a separate conversation about the importance of the Brave Gate title and what it means to the company. The Ishida thing was a fun mid-card thing, and I thought they did some really interesting things, and I liked a lot of those matches. But this Tanaka thing, I mean, look, this was an audition for the future Kobe World main event. And I thought Homare was there, and I thought Tanaka passed with flying colors. But they were putting this match on this show in this spot so that 5 years from now, it can be the last thing that goes on.
Yeah, and I mean, again, for Homare, like giving him his credit here, still 21 years old.
Still 21 years old.
Still 2 years less, has not crossed his third anniversary yet. He's still in his second year of pro wrestling.
Exactly. There's two ways to look at this match. There's the analysis of, if we're looking at it like a shoot, where I do think Tanaka was carrying Homare pretty heavily in this match. And I think that happened in the Jun Masaoka defense. I think that happened in the Ryo Fuda defense. I weirdly think that happened in the Genki Horiguchi defense, and I think it happened in the second UT defense, or I guess the first UT defense, but not the Kobe World match, but the Golden Coliseum match, where UT came into it pretty banged up. So we're seeing now that Tanaka can carry guys to great matches. From a kayfabe perspective, it was very clear that Homare was just not on the level of Tanaka, and for two young wrestlers of a similar weight and a similar frame, who are going to always be compared to one another, they made it very clear that Tanaka currently is a rung above Homare, especially in the second half of this match. This was Tanaka stringing together moves consistently, having a clear plan, and executing his offense at a high level. It was Homare going for flash pins and emergency super kicks and anything that he could possibly do just to stay alive for a second. And I really liked the story of that match where Homare was desperate and Tanaka came in with a plan. It was calculated throughout the entire match.
Yeah, and it the composure of Tanaka during the moments that this match could have really gone off course. Like, that was a level of composure that, I mean, dare I say it's Yoshino-esque? Like,
I think that's
like,
a very fair comparison. I do not think that's outrageous.
I think that, and it's in a way not fair to Tanaka, because I feel like that really, if we were to have the conversation about the Bravegate title now, Tanaka is someone that has to be at the front of the conversation here, and being compared to someone who is seen as the Bravegate Ultimate Champion for having 6 title runs is not necessarily a completely fair comparison. But the precision, the accuracy, like the sheer command, and at a point now 3 years into his career where he only has points where it's not like that we ever fail him on anything. We might take off a couple of points, but he's still getting A's on everything. He's that obnoxious of a student that he is that perfect Dragongate wrestler that, of course, if you develop a Dragongate wrestler in a lab, that we really feel like Ryoya Tanaka is that. The thing, one of the things that you would take and you would put into them is the composure, precision, and command that you would get from Masato Yoshino. And Tanaka's the one person who's come by in the 27 years of the Dragon system that I feel like comes close to that aspect of professional wrestling that I felt like Yoshino was the best at for the 20 years that he was wrestling.
In terms of this reign, I liked the Kame match more. I like the Flamita match more. I like the Billiken Kid match more. I like the Rita match more. I can't rate the 6-minute UT match from Golden Coliseum higher than this, but I do love what they did in that match. And then I think the Doi match is the high point of this reign. So this Homare match, 4 stars, and it falls right in the middle of what Tanaka's done. You know, I gave the same rating to the Jason Lee match. I would have this one just a hair above that Jason match. It's better than what he did against Genki. It's better than what he did against Fuda. It's better than what he did against Mochi, and it's better than what he did against Masuoka. It's incredible that a year into this reign, and I talked about this when he had that singles match against Araken. That was a non-title match, but I thought it was important, and I thought it was cool that he had it during this Bravegate run, where he's just having all of these different matches. I mean, this was way different than what he did against Doi, which was way different than what he did against UT, which was way different than the heel-heavy match against Jason Lee. That was way different than Billy Kid, which was way different from Fulmito, which was way different from Kame. The Mochizuki match, they tried and failed, but they did try something different there. And it's why I feel like there are so many more legs still left in this reign. If you just go without rematches, because God forbid we have a title reign with some rematches on this company, but if you just wanted fresh matches, you still have the Gucci match. You have a Kagetora match. You're going to do the Dragon Kid match. If you want to get really weird, and I would love to see this, but you've got a Susumu Yokosuka match that you could do if you really wanted to. You've got Mochizuki Jr., you've got Hyo, and you've got Jiro as the guys that are Bravegate weight that he hasn't wrestled yet. Now, I'm of the belief, I shared this a minute ago, that, you know, he should just hold on to this title until he wins the Dreamgate belt, with one caveat, Mike. And I don't see the company doing this. I don't think this is going to happen. But we've talked in the past, and especially when we thought that this might be a Dragon Kid match at World, you know, I was really talking about how whoever beats Tanaka is going to have to be in the position to get one hell of a rub from it. It's why I don't like the idea of Hyo beating Tanaka if they decide to go that route, because Hyo does not need to beat Tanaka.
No.
You need to establish somebody if you're going to end this reign. The only person that I'm really interested in beating Tanaka, if you're going to remove, say, Kame from the equation or Rita from the equation, is if this company wanted to actually build up and get behind a Gucci versus Tanaka match. That's the type of guy that could benefit from beating Tanaka. And specifically, given his old character, given the history of that man, Gucci versus Tanaka and Cork and Hall, with Gucci winning, could go down, and I say this without hyperbole, as one of the great moments in the company history if everything went right. That's really the only thing that I'm interested in seeing Tanaka do, or the only person I'm interested in seeing Tanaka lose to at this point in time.
Yeah, and I mean, he's the one person that I feel like is kind of staged in this. That I mean, he's not going to be Triangle Gate champion. It feels like anytime soon, or at least that Natural Vibes is going to be up for the Triangle Gate or Twin Gate. That he feels like that he could be the one. That if the position was right, and I mean, looking at the Corkins, especially the way that. I mean, not to go completely schedule hopping at this point, that, man, after the Oda Award and Sendai 3 weeks later, it does feel like that, not even 3 weeks later, sorry, 8 days later, it's 3 shows later. It does feel like that the rest of the calendar year is kind of open in a way that, boy, you're going to have to be doing some Cork and title matches, and it feels like that he would be a person that really that feels like it could be of the moment to do that, but there's no one else at this point. I mean, that's just the toughness of Tanaka having a run like this, that there's just you know, unless you're revisiting people at this point, there's not the exit ramps that the Dreamgate had.
The stakes are very high to get the title off of him in the right way. And again, that, you know, there's no reason that they can't go back to Kame. There's no reason that they can't go back to Rita. There's no reason that they can't go back to Jason if they really, really wanted to. But I think the exit ramp, if there is one, is Gucci. I think that guy has the right energy. That's the right type of character. That's the guy at the right moment in his career. That's the type of guy that benefits from this. I think Hyo beating Tanaka, and I mentioned Hyo just because I mean, I was just astounded again at how over he was on this show, and it's a match that they haven't done yet. You know, Tanaka versus Hyo would be a huge match, but I feel like they've positioned it to where Tanaka should be a bigger star than Hyo. And Hyo win. It's not the same. It's not the same thing. It doesn't have the right energy to it. Does that make sense? Are you getting what I'm saying? That Hyo ending this reign is just not, it's not the spirit of this title run.
No, and I feel like that Hyo, I mean, where I want to see Hyo in 2026 and 2027, it's not messing around with this belt anymore. Like,
I want to see Hyo have a title match at Corkin, but I want it to be for the Dreamgate belt.
Exactly. And it's just like, I right now have up the Bravegate website that's on Gaora, and I mean, Hyo has been Bravegate champion twice, and I mean, he was the 45th champion. We're at the 55th champion, and with his trajectory and popularity, it is just not a good fit. And unless like he immediately like throws down the belt and goes like, hey, I'm going for the Dreamgate right now, no one's going to get anything out of that. You know, like then it's like, why take the belt off him to begin with? And it just does not make a lot of sense to me that Hyo is the player. So, I mean, we're talking about someone in Hyo that was Bravegate champion 4 full years ago. It just doesn't feel like that. It's not like Yoshino coming back. It's not like Dragongate coming back.
You're not elevating anybody in that spot. I think that's the simplest way to put it. It took forever for me to forget that. Yeah. But you're not elevating Hyo. You're elevating Gucci. And we'll table our thoughts on him until the Triangle Gate match. But I'm all for any sort of Gucci elevation. I don't think Hyo needs it at this point. Brave Gate match was excellent. 4 stars for me. You said you were 4.5 on it.
Yeah, and I think it was because how much I love the closing stretch of it.
It was great. I mean, I can't believe they did the Avalanche Cross Saber as well as they did.
That looked insane.
That was awesome. They nailed it. It's funny, you know, we had the issue with the Stardust Press last year, and this year they come back and they do Avalanche Cross Saber into a Stardust Press, and he hits both of them perfectly.
Absolutely. The Twin Gate was our comeback from intermission title match. Team 204, Yoshiki Kato and Ishin making their first defense against the new unit Zenith, spelled Xeni capital S capital S, Kota Minoura and Yuki Yoshioka. And it's Team 204 making their successful defense after some Gaja Dokuro bullshit, a miss attack roll up after the as their second kind of Gaja Dokuro batch of interference. They tricked me on this one case because right as it looked like that we were getting Terminator mode Yuki Yoshioka, miss attack roll up, Team 204 retains. Zenith loses on their first match as an official unit.
I think this is a massive mistake. I do not like this finish at all. It did not sit right with me. I thought this was the best built match on this show in the run up to it. And I thought the result was so obvious here that it should be Yoshioka and Minoura going over. And I was really put off by the result. Not necessarily the finish, not the in-ring action. I actually really liked the finishing stretch of this match. I was so put off by the result of this. I just don't understand this in any way.
Yeah, and it's done in, I guess, it would have been too good to have a major show with no Gaja Dokuro kind of interference in that fashion because Zenith works. Yoshioka and Minoura, they found the right guy to be with each other, to go on a tag run, to do the decycling that Kikuta is about to go on, like doing really what is the best thing for them at this station of their career. And you could have had this really hot tag team winning their first match. I mean, Kota Minoura might have been the most popular person in this building outside of the moments of KZ winning the Dreamgate. And just feels like a big miss. And it was such a disappointing thing that the match for me, I was like trending like, okay, maybe we're going to be in a scenario where we're getting 4 title matches, 4 4-star matches. That's an 8 on. That's the best case scenario on our expectation and enthusiasm scale coming out of Kobe World. But the finish in this match knocked it down a full point for me. And yeah, it's a shame because Ishin was great in this. Like Ishin worked really well with both Yoshioka and Minoura in this, but it's just the dumbest finish and like the wrong champion. The wrong team won, and now Team 204 will go into Rey de Parejas as Twin Gate champions.
So I'm not like, I don't even hate the finish in terms of the actual work of it.
It was at least boom, boom, boom.
I'll say, yeah, this thing, for as much as I've complained about, you know, referee interference spots and all the Gaja Dokuro cheating and the way that it's weighed down matches this year, I actually thought this match got better once that started. Once Kai made his presence felt, and once Jason Lee made his presence felt, and once you started doing the powder and the mist, I was into all of that. I thought all of that was done exceptionally well in this match, so that did not bother me. But this match needed to end with a high fly flow, because the problem is that now we go into Rey de Parejas where either this whole tournament is going to be built around Zenith trying to get their win back, which is the most boring result possible, or Zenith don't get their win back and then they just look stupid. There's so many problems could be solved by them winning the titles in this tournament, setting up their first challengers, because that could be Ishin and Kato, but that also could be anybody else. And instead now I'm just going to be under the assumption that in September, when we get to the finals in Corkin, that Yoshioka and Minoura are going to be there, that they're going to win, and that wherever they decide to have that rematch for the Twin Gate belts, they'll have it there. But now we're months beyond the momentum that's been captured by this unit forming and the branding of this unit and the color scheme. I might hate the name, but I at least like the colors. We're past all of that now. There are times throughout history where Dragongate has beat new units in their debuts, and while I very rarely ever agree with the idea, I can see the forest through the trees, and I can see the long-term plan that's at stake there. This is not one of those. This was built for a reason. This was built to a point where wrestling logic should tell you to get the Twin Gate belts on these guys while they're hot. And I don't want to see them have to go through a tournament just to get back to where they were. I thought this was a massive mistake.
Yeah, and then what do you do if they lose that tournament? Like, in a way,
I guess that's fine. Like, I think that actually kind of takes the pressure off of everybody. I think the bigger issue is, hey, what if this just builds to another rematch? It's not going to be as hot as this match was.
Yeah, and it just, in a way, now I look at Rey de Parejas and I'm assuming Zenith is going to win. It does kind of feel like that they're kind of punting the ball down the field and go like, oh, we're going to get the bigger response later. But I don't think the bigger response is going to come later.
No, Mike.
Yeah.
So let's say, and we don't have the full Rey de Parejas blocks yet. It's funny because Mike doesn't know anybody in Rey de Parejas. I'm going to tell him in just a second. But
I'm assuming Zenith's in it. Are Zenith and Rey de Parejas at this point?
They were the first team announced, yes. So
thank God.
So let's just say that Korakuen Kickoff in August is headlined by Kame and Rita versus Susumu and Kagatora. That match is going to be infinitely hotter than it was at Golden Coliseum because we now know what those two teams are capable of, and they had one of the best matches of 2026. The problem is that if Yoshioka and Minoru and Ishin and Kato get back in the ring, it's not going to be as hot as this match was because this was a very middling Twin Gate match for the most part. I thought both teams individually put forth good performances, but this wasn't a super special match. This was a match that existed. That was the best thing I can say about it. It was a match that existed, 3.25 stars. I liked the finishing stretch with all the commotion, but this was not a great match. And so the next time these two teams are in the ring with one another, I'm going to have a very specific ceiling that I think they can reach, and it's much lower than the ceiling that I came into this match with.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with you on this. I thought that I was 3.5 on it. I really got sucked in by Yuki Yoshioka. He still has that ability case that he can't turn it on all the time, but like he did it enough that, God, I thought that he was about to do the battle hook and then immediately hop on the top rope and just squish Ishin, and then I'll be like, hey, my favorite guy's back. Look at him. But no, that's not gonna happen. And I just don't feel like that. This Zenith team could probably be pretty well exposed by the end of Rey de Parejas on where they are in this pecking order of this promotion. And I think
they have a chance to have an all-star tag team that they could. They could use at the box office. Like, that's why it's
sent
so
other
strange.
Promotions and stuff. Being the representative of what Dragongate is in 2026, Zenith should be that.
It's so strange. And for as much as I like Ishin and Kato, and our thoughts on Ishin are well known, I'm not even sure Kato's a great wrestler, but I love that guy. I just like watching him. I think he does a few things exceptionally well.
His collapsing lariat is my favorite lariat in wrestling.
It's great. There's just a few things that he does that I'm really into, but we've seen that that team has been in constant spotlight since January of this year, really going back to December of last year. We've seen what they can do. I think they're a good tag team. They're not a great tag team. Dragongate has maximized what they can do as a team. I don't think, in the same way that, when Kame and Rita lost the belts, we were like, God, it feels like there was more to that reign. I wish they would have been champions a little bit longer. Between all of the All Asia stuff and now this Twin Gate stuff that Ishin and Kato have been a part of this year, I felt like I had seen enough of them. I don't really need to see them go through Rey de Parejas as Twin Gate champions. Quite honestly, I would have liked for them to have lost this match and then to either have done Ishin and Kikuta and Kato and Jason, or Kato and Kai and Jason and Ishin. I would have liked to have seen them split up for Rey de Parejas. I think that would have been interesting. But now we're just stuck with these guys as champions. And I think it's a mistake because I think Ishin and Kato individually are far more entertaining than this tag team has allowed them to be.
Yeah, and I feel like the issue with Kato is that he's always had the solo thing kind of looming over, and at least to me, I like so much of when the promotion is in its right place and everything kind of making sense. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm so willing to put Ryoya Tanaka on a pedestal as the perfect Dragon Gate wrestler, but it just, in general, this Team 204 team, like, we have to treat them as a big deal, right? I mean, for a brief time period, they were Triple Crown Tag Team Champions, and it is a hard thing not to overlook, like, the fact that those kind of accomplishments and the fact that the belts have kind of been, that they have been one of the tag teams that you would kind of go with, like, who's the tag team of the year in Dragon Gate. And in a way, you have to do the match work versus accomplishment conversation with them versus Jackie Rita in it. But, like, it just always feels like that Kato should be taking care of something else, and this tag team is kind of getting in a way of that.
The tag team's a
them.
little beneath them, which is funny because they're Twin Gate champions, but I feel like they're both capable of way more.
Yeah, and I think that just Gacha Dokoro's in a really weird spot now, down to 5, because you know, I mean, what other tag team you're going to have come out of there? I mean, yeah, we talked about Kikuta and Jason being like a fun thing, but I mean, it kind of feels like that they're stuck in the slot because they need to have a tag team in this. And now that Mino Lee is done and dusted, they're going to stick with Team 204 when it feels like, as you said, like they should be doing something much more than that.
Yeah, but it's odd because you've got the belt off of Kikuta, so that opens up, again, whether it's Kikuta Jason, Kikuta Kai, Kikuta Kato, like there's plenty. They could have refreshed the heel tag team based on the Kikuta result too. This is this match felt spiritually very Dragon Gate 2026, which is a huge insult. The rest of this show, greener pastures ahead, silver lining, felt like we were moving in the right direction. But this had that head-scratching booking that I just don't get, because you can use Yoshioka and Minoru as something so much more than what you can out of Ishin and Kato. And again, you could build the tag league around, hey, it's an open field, it's a new era of the Twin Gate division. Anybody could win this tournament and wrestle these guys. And by the way, they're going to be in the tournament as well. And it didn't happen. I think it's so strange. And so I would almost, at this point, rather than try to immediately rehab this image and go right back to where we started and come full circle with Yoshioka Minoru winning this tournament, like, I'd rather them get bounced in the semis. I think they'll do well in the tournament, but I don't want to see them in the finals. Like, I think they've got to lose via roll up in the semis, and then the slate's clean, and then we can go from there. But that, to me, that's like the way they have to get out of it now.
No, I think I'm on board with that. I'm with you on that. But we had Rey de Parejas being announced before that.
Thank God, by the way.
Team 204 will be entering this tournament as champions. If they don't, do the thing where it's going to be Ishin and Kikuta and Kato and Jason.
Which, honestly, I'd be fine with. I would be fine if, just for the sake of this tournament, they wanted to do a refresh. It wouldn't really make sense. It would be a hard thing to defend logically, and yet I'd be totally okay with it.
So I really don't know anything about this tournament.
Okay, so they're doing daily announcements on the Dragongate social media. I don't know how many teams are in it. Maybe 12. I think it's 2 blocks of 6 teams. And so as of this recording time, we're doing this Wednesday evening as Dynamite is going on. Which, have you had Dynamite on in the background?
Buddy, it is still 76 degrees in my office. I am not having anything on in here other than the computer. I'm not,
okay.
I don't want anything throwing off heat right now.
The match, the show kicked off with Darby versus Kevin Knight, and then it bled right into Okada and Fletcher versus Bandito and Brody King. And both of those matches and the angles that they did, a Heyman special with them. Both of those matches and the angles that surrounded them looked absolutely superb. And I know people aren't super high on this redemption card, but I'm sorry, Bandito versus Fletcher is a pay-per-view draw match for me. They could put nothing else on that show that I care about, and I would be fully in buying that show because I want to see that match so badly. So, recommended there. As for the Rey de Parejas lineup, we currently have 2 teams in the A block and 2 teams in the B block. You noted earlier, you were like, all right, I would imagine Zenith is in it. That's Yoshioka and Minoru. They are in it. They're in the B block. Would you like to take any other guesses as to the 3 other teams that have been announced so far.
Okay. I'm going to assume Jackie Rita got announced.
Jackie Rita got announced today. They are in the A block, so they are in the opposite block of Yoshioka and Minoura.
Did Mochi Fuji get announced?
Mochi Fuji, as of now, has not been announced.
Okay. So Natural Vibes, now you have the situation of just KZ as champion, so you're not really tied up with it. You have a lot of combos there. Do kind of feel like they'll do Young Vibes.
They are doing Young Vibes. That is in the B block. So right now the B block is Yoshioka, Minoura, and Gucci and Aki, which I was a little surprised by. I thought they might do Gucci and UT and Strong Machine J and Aki, or KZ in one of those combinations, but they are doing Young Vibes. So I hope that we get Yoshioka, Minoura versus Gucci and Aki on TV. I think that'd be very fun. And I'll go over the TV schedule here momentarily. But
yeah, I feel like Aki might have been either dealing with an injury or is taking like that they're so enamored with maybe where Gucci's at that Aki kind of got left behind over the last few months. So I
say this with love to Aki. That's fine. If this company is enamored with Gucci, I am all for that, and I support that 1,000,000%. They can continue to be enamored with him.
Hey, I'm not totally against that. I mean, hey, one of them was in a title match. One of them was in the opener. I have no clue what this 4th team is, guys.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a hint just because I want to hear your guess based on this. It is a core Dragongate wrestler, regular roster member, teaming with an outsider.
Is Hyo getting like Ishimori in from New Japan? Because that'd be sick.
That would be sick. As of right now, that is not what is announced.
Well, I need to have the fucking book because I'm
all for it. That'd be very fun.
Okay, it's not Hyo's not with someone from New Japan though. It's not Hyo.
It is not Hyo with somebody from New Japan.
Yamato is someone who usually has an outsider, I feel like, or be willing to do outsider things. Don't know who the outsider would be though to team with Yamato. Trying to think of other core people.
Take a look at that roster page. I want you to get this. I want you to come to your own realization that this is what we're getting in Rey de Parejas.
Well, like, I'm thinking core roster members and like going through like the calculus with it, like Monte having if they have like a wrestler from Mexico wrestling with Monte makes a lot of sense.
That would require them to care about Monte. So unfortunately, that is not it.
I mean, the unit that I'm like looking at and going, surely they would just do 3 teams of, because you already have one of them, and then do like KZ and Flamita and UT and SMJ.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
The person that like, I'm assuming that the people that have been working with outsiders are not working with outsiders. So the way that you answered about Monte means Flamita is not this person. Is SMJ teaming with an outsider?
Mike, you're red hot. Who was Strong Machine J teaming with? I want you to figure this out on your own. I would be so fucking excited if you get this.
Okay.
Who would Strong Machine J and I'm gonna set it up, by the way. I would say so. They brought Rey de Parejas back in when did they bring it back? 2023.
Yeah, because that was Kikuta and Yoshioka of all teams.
And that was the fun Yoshiki Kaito Nagano team. That was the Mochizuki's.
Tag.
So 2023 and 2024, Rey de Parejas was my favorite thing they did in the promotion. I felt like it was the high mark of wrestling in this promotion throughout the year. I love Dragongate tag team matches. Rey de Parejas was a great tag team tournament those years. And now Strong Machine J is teaming with an outsider.
Yeah, and like the thing with this is, if this was the promotion 4 years ago, we're like, okay, someone's coming in as a Strong Machine. That's clearly not what's happening.
What's happening.
Okay. SMJ, I'm thinking about when he has worked with outsiders and what has the outsiders things have been.
You're getting there.
And there's one name that is ringing in my head because of his dad. And that's Tatsumi Fujinami. I don't think Fujinami is working this.
Uh-uh.
Is it fucking Leona? Jesus. You saw the synapses in my head go.
Oh, that was the most exciting radio I've produced in 2026, and I produce it for a living.
Jesus.
That was awesome.
I can't believe it's Leona. I can't believe it's Leona.
Mike, that was the first team they announced. That was the A block first announcement. That they led with that.
Case they can't lead off with Leona.
That's awesome.
Jeez.
They had yesterday. They were like, "We're doing Yoshioka and Minoura. We're also doing Strong Machine J and Leona." Oh, that was my God. I love that so much. That was so much fun.
Is this what Fujinami like said that he would do for doing that All Asia tag match? Like
Maybe.
You have to
I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm such a mark for Fujinami that I think if I had the pencil, I would also book Leona. It's my weakness. I recognize it. It's just like if Tetsumi Fujinami told me to do something, I would do it. Oh, that was fun. That was so much fun.
The roster member, the hint about like the mainline roster member was the thing that kind of let me play Guess Who and cut off a lot of them, to be fair.
Oh, God, that was nice. Okay, so as of right now, and this will change by the time people hear this because there will be 2 more teams added, but right now it is Strong Machine J and Leona and Kame and Rita in the A block. It is Yoshioka and Minoura and Gucci and Aki in the B block. As for the television we're going to get from Rey de Parejas, it's going to kick off on the 4th in Cork and Hall. So that's 2 weeks from now.
That's going to be a stacked Corkin with Shun Skywalker's last match.
That's right. So we'll have a delayed recording that week because that show is taking place on a Tuesday, and I know that I'll need a few days to watch that. So we might end up doing like a Thursday or a Friday record. Yeah, but
yeah, that's not a good week. Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, bad week for both of us. But we're going to get the 4th on TV. That's Corkin. We're going to get the 11th, which is a national holiday show from the new Osaka building that they're running. We're going to get TV there. We're going to get TV on the 16th in Kobe. We'll get a double header in Fukuoka on the 23rd. And we will also get a show from Nara on August 30th before this tournament wraps up on September 3rd, a Thursday in Cork and Hall. So a lot of this is going to air. I would not count on any YouTube uploads. We'll see, but I wouldn't count on it. But a fair amount of this will air. We get a Fukuoka double shot in there, which I think is great. Even with Leona being involved right now, Mike, I'm super excited for this tournament.
Yeah, and if we have 12 teams, maybe Moody gets a tag team? Like, there's a lot of ways to go with that.
Maybe. I would like to see that, but maybe. Let me pull up Jay's Blue Sky. He had a proposed list. He said he didn't know anything, but this is his dream list, or the way that he laid this out was, he had it here.
I got to pull it up.
Yeah, Minoura, Yoshioka, Team 204, Jackie Rita, Cielo Monte, Ryoya, and Homare. Young Vibes, we'll count Vibes B as Strong Machine J and Leona, Doyama, Susumu Kagetora, Hyo Gianni, Fuda, and Moody, and then an old guys tag team. If that ends up being the lineup, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I would be kind of excited about it. Doyama instead of Not Hug.
Yeah, true. I would love it if they ran back for as badly as I want a Susumu Kagetora Kame Rita rematch. I would love if they ran back that Yamato Susumu team that teamed up a few years ago. I thought they were great together.
Yeah, no, I was a big fan of that.
And then you do like Doi and I guess you do Doi and Kage. That'd be weird, but I'd kind of like to see that.
Have Doi and Kage like even ever been on like a Dragongate team together?
Oh, I guess you would do Doi and Dragon Kid. I forgot about Dragon Kid. You would do that probably instead of Doi Kage. But no, I mean,
I actually don't think Dragon Kid's going to be in the tournament. I think I have heard. Oh no, never mind. Mine erased the last 5 seconds.
Okay, all right. Was that a scoop there?
It's something that I'll tell you off air.
Okay, all right. I appreciate that. So anyways, that's Rey de Parejas. We'll have plenty of coverage for that. I am excited for that, which is nice to say in 2026 about Dragon. I am excited for Rey de Parejas.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. You have the right champion for it. It's not going to be that much of a beating. And with the exception of Leona, a lot of interesting kind of pairings to do with that. The go to intermission match on Kobe World was Yamato's 20th anniversary match, the full complement of Paradox, Yamato, BB Hulk, Naruki Doi, Dragongate, Kagatora, and Susumi Yokosuka versus the Torimon generation of Ultimo Dragon, Don Fuji, Masaki Mochizuki, Ginki Horiguchi, Azushi Kanda, and Kenichiro Rai, accompanied by Konamawa Ichikawa, Super Shisa, who is good to see Super Shisa after hearing that he's doing a little, that he's kind of in rough shape, and Choco Flake Keiichi, in essentially a 12-minute match that was Yamato versus all the veterans and people that he's had a lot of links with throughout his career. He won with after 2 Galereas on Ginki because it is Ginki Mania year. It's not going to take just one to put down Horiguchi. And it kind of was exactly what you would expect for this match.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't know. I'm disappointed in it. I'm disappointed that this was the use of Yamato on this show.
Yeah.
It existed. It was harmless. It was relatively short, but it's not anything that I'll remember. I think a year from now, we'll look at this as a really weird oddity for Yamato's 20th anniversary.
Yeah, and really, as I said earlier, this match, the reason to watch this match is if you want to have a 15-minute history crash course on the career of Yamato done by Jay. He was really great on that.
Jay was great this entire show. I thought he was excellent in the Dreamgate match. I thought he was excellent in the Bravegate match. I thought he was excellent in the Triangle Gate match. And I thought he was really good here.
Shun Skywalker's final match in Kobe was the next match. It was a 3-way, 6-way, a 6-man tag, one fall to a finish. The teams were the former Saipatra of Shun Skywalker, Johnny Valletta, and El Cielo versus Team Mexico of Flamita, Luis Monte, and Dragonbane versus the heel team of Kai, Jason Lee, and Alpha Wolf of Team 2000X.
There's a few different ways we could go with this. I do want to start with this, which is that under the assumption that he's working the schedule that he's been working the last few years, that means that Flamita's going home. What a waste of Flamita during this tour. He did absolutely nothing of note.
Yeah, it's a bummer because he felt like he added a little bit of a spark here, and it just, you know, I would have loved to see Flamita and Young Vibes challenging for the Triangle Gate and having that be the pairing here.
Just something. I mean, this is a guy who, based off the limited work that he's done in Dragon Gate over these last few years, I've considered to be like a top 35, top 40 wrestler in the world. And I couldn't possibly justify that decision this year because he did nothing on this tour. And it struck me watching it. I was like, oh yeah, Flamita's going to go home. And other than that 3-way tag at the June Corkin show, which was random and, you know, great but unnecessary. I mean, this was just an entirely worthless tour. What a disappointment that was. What a terrible use of Flamita. And then you have the Shun Skywalker stuff where this stuff is kind of existing in non-canon. It feels awkward. It feels like a separate universe. It's like the extended Dragongate universe that this stuff is happening in. And it's not bad, but it's also not good. And that's the bummer, is that it is not fun watching Shun Skywalker wrestle right now.
Yeah, and he's just like pulling people into the orbit doing these Shun matches essentially because it was a crowd brawl to start, and it then had a second long crowd brawl. Alpha Bane looked fun in this match. I always like seeing Alpha Bane here. Dragon Bane. Alpha Wolf as Team 2000X is no buys for me. And you had a great triple dive from Flamita, Monte, and Dragon Bane towards the closing stretch. And then it was basically kick, wham, summer, moonsault, knees, kick out, SSW on Jason. And that was it for Shun Skywalker at Kobe World Cannon Hall, at least as a Dragon Gate wrestler.
And I felt like Jay did a lot of heavy lifting on commentary to make Jason losing to Shun here with the SSW like the final chapter in this long running history between these two, because they do have a long running history. And I talked about this in my written review where, in 2018 and 2019, these are like young kids who are really exciting parts of a promotion that's in some turmoil. And then they have Masquerade together. And then, Shun turns and you have the fight over the custody of Jason Lee in 2022 up through Jason Lee's heel turn in 2024. And, they're tied at the hip until Shun gets turned on last year. And in theory, the final interactions between Jason Lee and Shun Skywalker should mean a ton. And it just fell flat to me because of the way that Shun has been handled and Shun's performances. And it was kind of sad, but not in the heartwarming, like, I'm glad I've spent years with these guys watching the story develop. It was sad that it was like, oh, that's it? Oh, this match was kind of getting good, and then that's when Shun pinned Jason and just halted all momentum. It's a real bummer that Skywalker has gone out this way. It has been a very confusing 11 months where there are some times where he has the match and he reminds people that he's the best wrestler of the 2020s, not named Bryan Danielson or Will Ospreay, but more often than not over the last 9 or 10 months, it has just been head-scratching decisions from him in this weird sort of half canon, half non-canon stuff that he's existing in that I am very worn out on.
Yeah, it's definitely a scenario where, as he leaves, how are we going to measure this last year in comparison to the previous 9? Because, to be honest, this has kind of continued my opinion of this entire kind of series that I get it, especially advertising him getting the stops on the loop before he's gone. But it just, like, I'm ready for it to be over with. I was ready for it to be over with 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, as am I.
And this just felt like it felt weird having a 9-man match followed immediately by a 12-man match.
But as we talked about last week, these ended up being the get guys on the card matches, which was weird considering some of the names. Did we need
to get Johnny, Dragonbane, and Alpha Wolf on this card?
Somebody pointed this out to me last week, and I hadn't even thought about this, about what a poor booking choice it was to put Alpha Wolf with Jason Lee and Kai, because the March Corkin had that Gaja Dokro Team 2000X
match
that I completely blocked out of my memory as soon as it ended. I haven't thought about that match since. And then somebody mentioned that. And somebody mentioned that to me last week. They were like, well, it's even worse booking because the team of Jason Lee and Kai and Alpha Wolf don't even make sense together, which then it was like, oh God, really? What are we doing here? I will say, and this is certainly not the goal of Kobe World, and it is probably a flaw that this was my takeaway of this match. I thought Alpha Wolf head and shoulders best guy in the match. I thought Alpha Wolf was great in this.
I don't know. It's just whenever there's a Team 2000X, it just immediately my interest drops like a.
I get it, but this was not. This was just Alpha Wolf being Alpha Wolf, which is a wrestler that I really enjoy, and he was with Jason Lee and Kai, which is a pretty good trio. In theory, I should like those guys teaming with one another. In execution, I liked those guys teaming with one another. I just shouldn't ever leave a Kobe World match going like, God, look at how great Alpha Wolf was.
No, that's entirely fair. Our fourth title match was before this. The 100th Open the Dragongate champion team was decided between Love and Peace, Hyo, Jackie Kamei, and Rita versus Natural Vibes, Strong Machine J, UT, and Gucci. And it was Love and Peace becoming the 100th Dragongate champion team with a Manji Gatame on UT by Hyo on a match that I felt like, if anything needed throughout this year, that they have added that this is Dragongate thing, almost to erasing the ability of that as a tagline. This match felt like that this should be the latest on the list of what Dragongate is in 2026, because this was one of those Triangle Gate matches that I feel like that unless you really like actually, okay, so let me put it this way. Remember when we were doing the state of Luchares a couple of weeks ago, and I posed my question about if Dragongate got too far away from what Luchares was at its core, comparing it with Osaka Pro Wrestling? This is a match that tells me that Dragongate can still put forth the effort to evolve the format, because this felt like the most modern Dragongate Trios match since maybe Dragongate in Vegas to me. Like, it felt like that this was them at the cutting edge at a time where they haven't felt like they've been on the cutting edge for a while.
Yo, that's an interesting question.
They just went for it.
So straight trios match, because the end of the year last year there was that Ben Hyo Jr., Jason Kai Kato, KZ Strong Machine J UT match that was incredible, and then last August there was that Ben Kame Rita, Dai Kikuta Tanaka, Bendito Flamita Monte 3-way match that I thought was also really cutting edge. But straight trios match, yeah, it's probably since April 18th of last year, that second Vegas trios match. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Let me throw this at you. I realized this as I was doing my written review. Do you realize that this was the first all Dragon Gate versus all Dragon Gate open the Triangle Gate match since February of this year?
That would make sense.
Uno Dos Tres was when the Aki Gucci KZ trio won the belts from Love and Peace and Paradox in that 3-way trios match. The one defense they had was at Golden Coliseum, and that was against Problem Dragon Takashi and Koji Iwamoto. Now, I thought Iwamoto was great in that match. It made me want Iwamoto on the rock. He was great. But Problem Dragon Takashi, Koji Iwamoto, that is not a pure Dragon Gate team. And then from there, you had all the nonsense of Ryukyu Dragon. Those belts were then vacated. So we haven't had a proper Triangle Gate match with any sort of focus since February. And then they come out here and they do this. And I wrote about this extensively. I'll say it here. For all of the athletic advancements and innovation in professional wrestling today, I still feel like most of the wrestling world is just doing a watered down Dragon Gate house style. And I can assure you that there is no other roster on the planet that could do a match like this. And quite honestly, any pundit in the know, anyone that is aware of Dragon Gate, that is going to watch this show, that is going to talk about it, that doesn't love this match to whatever degree they love it, but that they love it, I would really question what they're watching and how they're analyzing wrestling in 2026, because I think this is a more undoubted great match than KZ versus Kikuta. I will, of course, strongly disagree with people that don't like that match or don't like it as much as I do, but I guess I can understand it. This one I don't understand. This should be a universally approved, everybody should love this match, no questions asked.
Yeah, and I mean, from start with the extended Natural Vibes party anthem entrance where they really went for it to there through the entire match. Like, I was surprised at the amount of time this got. This match got 15 minutes and 25 seconds when we were hoping that it was going to get 10. And they took advantage of the situation. I mean, Gucci is the most approved wrestler in the world in 2026. He keeps on knocking it dead. The fact that the core of this match was Hyo versus UT, and Hyo going for the Manjigatame, and UT finding ways to get the Bien Yave in interesting situations, keeping him into the match, and then having the bursts of Jackie Rita and Strong Machine J, the way that they did the kickouts. I mean, my God, the double stomp out of the machine suplex, just ridiculous stuff. And it was a Triangle Gate match and a Dragon Gate Trios match that for 15 minutes did not let up whatsoever. Even the submission work from Hyo and UT was spirited. It was lively. It was interesting in the way that they would go for it and the way that they would counter into their submissions and into like their penning holds, and just a level of chemistry with those two that I feel like can be truly exceptional here. And yeah, although I had 3 matches with the identical star rating, this is the match that I will remember as the match of Kobe World 2026. And give it to it should be no surprise, really, that we give it to Jackie Rita, who have been this insane tag team now for 18 months. Gucci, who has stepped up in ways that I didn't think it was possible. Hyo still on the run of his career. UT being able to show that he has a lot to bring to this roster, even the state he did. And SMJ was providing enough spice there that
he kept the pace. Strong Machine J did not slow this match down, and that is the win there.
And what you have when you get those 6 together and give them a quarter hour, it's a 4.5-star match of the year contender level trios match. It's going to be hard to find a trios match that is going to be as good as this throughout the entire wrestling world this year.
I want to hit on Kame. I want to hit on Rita. I want to hit on Gucci. Just real quick on the Kame front. His Kobe World history, 2021, because he might have had COVID during the 2020 show, but he wasn't on that. But 2021 night 1, this is a very funny match to look at on paper. Ben-K, Gamma, Problem Dragon, and Punch Tamanaga versus Jackie Kame, UT, Takashi Yoshida, and Yosuke Santa Maria. He's only on night 1 of 2 in 2021. He's not even on the second night. 2022 comes around. Night 1 is Jason and Jackie versus Diamante and Shun. The second night, he's got the off night there. They do Z-Brats versus Kung Fu Masters. From there, Minoru, Minorita, and Doi versus Shimizu, Kame, and KZ in a Dragongate match. I went notebook on that. 2024, Dragongate and Doi versus Kame and Monte versus Flamita and KZ versus Jason and Skywalker. I went notebook on that. 2025, Bendito, Flamita, and Monte versus Homare, Ishin, and Kato, Kame, Mochizuki Jr., and Rita. Went notebook on that. Now this year, Hyo, Kame, Rita versus Gucci, Strong Machine J, UT. I went notebook on that. We talk about it all the time. Legitimately, Jackie Kame is one of the best big match wrestlers in the entire world. His hit rate is astonishing. His batting average is astronomically high. His ceiling is almost as high as anybody's in the world. And he's starting to put together a legendary Kobe World resume to go along with everything else that he's already doing.
He's the Bob Orry of professional wrestling.
He's unbelievable. But the problem is that he shouldn't be the Bob Orry. He should be something more than that. And it's a crime that we are comparing him to Bob Orry and not an athlete that was a bigger star and a more focal point of championship teams. This is not a heat check guy. This is Tony Parker and not Robert Horry. And the problem is that they're treating him like Robert Horry. It drives me absolutely insane. As for Rita, I think if I had to submit my SFM 50 today, I think I would have Rita higher than Kame for the first time ever. And I'm starting to get scared at just how high I have Rita. But there's nothing that he doesn't do at an exceptional level. And I'm just watching his offense in this match. I'm watching his double stomps. I'm watching the way that he's taking offense from others. I'm just completely enthralled with every single step that Rita's taking. I'm completely blown away by every move that he makes. I think if he showed up on Dynamite tomorrow, I think it would be legitimately very similar to Ray Jr. showing up in WCW because of his size and because of his frame and because of the fact that nobody works like Rita does. He's like he's like a less goofy version of Speedball. They do offense in a very similar way, but I think Rita does it way better than Speedball does. And I love Speedball, but I think Rita's like a better version of that. I think he would blow people away if he showed up on Dynamite tomorrow. Rita's having the best year of his career. I think is absolutely phenomenal. As for Gucci, Mike, I don't want to hear another name mentioned when it comes to most improved 2026. The conversation starts and ends with Gucci, bar none. End of discussion. Not interested in another name. Imagine telling yourself at this time last year when he was still Daiki Yanagiuchi with a gimmick that was running long in the tooth. And at this point, he wasn't even the Cork and Hall employee. He was just still the guy in the white tights with nothing else going on for him. Imagine telling yourself then just how integral to the day-to-day operations of Dragongate that Daiki Yanagiuchi would be in July of 2026. But for all of the flaws of this promotion this year, Imagine them without Daiki in this spot. Think about that.
It's incredible to see what this guy, who essentially to me, I felt he was the biggest dweeb ever, talented, but like a dweeb for the longest time. And now he's out there in a Derby kilt, just going wild and with a level of speed and crispness that is really beyond the amount of opportunity that he's been given to show that. Like, we're really talking about a guy that, although he's had a couple moments, of course, like the Mochizuki Dojo stuff and the Yamato match, it's not like that he had been a huge focus until the Natural Vibes join at the beginning of this year. So we're talking about 7 months that this guy has been able to go all gas, no brakes. And what we're seeing is like, he is never going to probably be a Dreamgate guy, but my God, he is someone that I feel like that this is someone that I know that Kamei was recently got to go do a UK trip. I think he has enough natural charisma and ability that thinking that he was a dweeb was maybe intentional of them, that we could see actually how great of a middleweight wrestler he is. No.
I'm just blown away by him constantly. I think he is a top 50 wrestler in the world who is quickly becoming a top 40 and a top 35 and a top 30 wrestler in the world. And I there's just very few people that I've enjoyed more in wrestling this year than him. And this was his shining moment. I think it is an absolute war crime. I think it's a complete tragedy that the 100th Dragongate Championship match was handled in this way, because this is something that I've been circling just as a fan of this promotion for years and years now, knowing that we were eventually going to get to this point where we would have 100 Dragongate champions. And I thought it was a layup to have some sort of version of Vibes and Paradox in this spot, with Yamato and Gucci continuing their story from their Bravegate match last year. And that was abandoned, and we had this Ryukyu Dragon nonsense. And then we came here with, a match with no real build. I mean, a pretty cold match on paper that, given the talent involved, we knew could be something special. And we got something special out of it. And that is a pretty incredible thing. This is a must-watch match if there ever was. I really hope this match starts to make the rounds as more and more people talk about this show this week.
Yeah, it's just a really kind of exceptional match, and the one that's definitely sticking in my head a lot more so than other stuff on the show as we exit Kobe World. Jiro Shimbashi had a comedy match against Pancrase legend Masakatsu Funaki in match 2, and it was basically them kind of recreating the match that Ichikawa had against Funaki almost 20 years before.
Funaki gets comedy to a weird degree.
It made me, it's the first Shimbashi match in a few weeks that made me do a laugh. Like I don't know what it was. I think it was Funaki just kind of being befuddled by the ability of Shimbashi to use the umbrella in a match, but it got a laugh out of me, which is more than I was expecting.
Yep.
The opener of the pay-per-view proper was Kazuma Kimura and Mochizuki Jr. versus Ryu Fuda and Aki in a hot young guy opener.
I love this. I thought this was super fun. I'm continuously blown away by Kimura's footwork. That's the thing I always come back to with him. He's just always in the right place at the right time, which for a guy less than a year into his career is impressive. Thought Aki looked very good. I thought Fuda looked great. I thought Junior looked great also. I know I typically push against the idea of those two being in the ring with one another because we know that they're good together. But good on Fuda for having a strong showing at World. I hope he gets put in a unit soon. And I thought this was a really fun opener.
Wild round kick knockdown Junior got on Fuda in this.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Jay immediately called this Shin Psycho High. And I was like, yeah, no, I guess that's what it is. But it was almost Crow Cop-esque that he just like cranked one on him with it. And the German suplex hold that he won with was impressive. Fun 5-minute opener there. And then the advanced match, we got the entire one. We thought we might only get moments of it. It was Sachihoko Boy Takashi and Mondai Ryu versus Ho Ho Lun, Punch Tominaga, and Tristan Moody.
I had not had a chance to watch the shows that aired on the network right before this, so this was my first look at Moody. He was only in the match for a minute, but I liked what I saw. I thought that was very fun, and I look forward to seeing him progress as things go on here.
Yeah, I made time to see at least his stuff on Kyoto and Kobe, and he looks like he has it. Like he's has the speed to kind of keep up with it. That it doesn't feel like that he's needing adjustment time as much as some others might need. But the thing that kind of got me about this was he is 23 years old and has only been wrestling since 2024.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he progresses.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's gonna be fun. I don't know how long he's staying in Kobe, but hopefully he gets a good long stint there, and we get to see him progress as a Dragongate wrestler.
Absolutely.
And that is it for Kobe World. There is a network show coming up on Sunday, I believe, on the 26th. They are back in Sambo Hall for the Summer Festival. It's their usual post Corkin Hall, Kobe World show where it's a little bit more lighthearted in case Koki Oshima and Dai Tsuchiguchi are finally making their debut on this show.
Yeah, I have a bad feeling about that. I don't think that match is going to be fun. I know, credit to our friend Alan for trying to draw up some sort of alternate scenario where they kick the old guys' asses and look dominant in their debut. I think those gimmicks are going to be humiliating. I think they're going to get the shit kicked out of them. And I just have a horrible feeling that that match is going to be a bummer. And I am not looking forward to it.
Yeah, we can hold out hope that they will do it. I mean, lucky Oshima and Tsujiguchi Big Circus, boy, you can tell sometimes when they just don't feel it.
Yeah, I have a very bad feeling about that match. I hope I'm wrong. I just don't like the direction that's headed.
No. Maybe Alan's right on this. We also know a 6-man tag team match, Tanaka Gun finally making their debut as a 3-person team against KZ, Strong Machine J, and Flamita.
So, KZ, Strong Machine. Okay, so Flamita's sticking around for a little bit. That's good. I don't think they're going to go back to Flamita versus Tanaka. Strong Machine J can't challenge Tanaka. I don't think they're doing KZ and Homare. That wouldn't make any sense. And I certainly don't think they're doing KZ versus Kimura. I do have to wonder what KZ versus Tanaka is going to look like, not only during that match, but after the match as well.
Yeah, no, that would be an interesting thing to see. And we'll be back next week to talk about that case. Did you have anything else you want to touch on before we got out of here?
I do not.
You can find us on social media at Open VoiceGate, both on Twitter and on Blue Sky. Case is on Twitter at _InYourCase. I'm at Fujiheya. There's also the Voices of Wrestling Discord, which has the Open the VoiceGate channel as well as the Dragongate channel. I was not in it during Kobe World, but I looked back afterwards and seen how much the show has kind of had people popping in there. It was KZ time, and you had to know that the international fan base was going to really have it for KZ finally winning the big one. But that's the Voices of Wrestling Discord. And we will be back with you next week talking about that Summer Festival show in Kobe Sambo Hall and more coming out of Kobe World. So we'll be back with you then. Take care, everyone.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the VoiceGate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragongate is, how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the VoiceGate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragongate coverage, Open the VoiceGate.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.